Today's scripture comes from Matthew 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born of the Jews? For we observe his star at the rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea. For so it has been written by the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judea. From you shall come a ruler who is the shepherd of my people, Israel.'" Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left their own country by another road.
Night after night, they scanned the sky. The moon grew full, halved, slivered, and sometimes even disappeared. And then a new moon, crescent, half full again. Each night it rose in the sky, climbing higher and higher, still visible in the dawn's early light. But it wasn't just the moon they watched. There were stars. So many stars. Without the light pollution that dims the firmament now, the whole night came alive with stars. Bright stars that lit up the dark, each star in relationship to the other. They told a story of a people, ancient battles fought and won, a foretelling of the future. What would come? What would be? Night after night, they read the sky, and one night, something happened. A new star appeared. So bright was the star that they could not help but fixate upon it. There was something about the way it sparkled, something about the way it shone. It called to them, "A new light is rising. A new light has come." Compelled by the strength of its light, its wonder, its beauty bright, they decided to follow it. They left everything they knew to follow the star, to seek the light. Of course, the travel couldn't be done in one day. It took them 12, or so we say. One night, they stumbled upon a hut with an old woman who busily tended her fire, cooked her food, and went about her daily chores. The weary travelers were in need of a place to stay and asked the old woman if she'd offer them a bit of hospitality. And so she did. They told her their story. Night after night, they watched the sky. They told her how they had gazed, their eyes cast upward. And one night, they told her, something changed. One of them pointed at the star and said, "Look, The star has risen. See how it shines. It is like no other, for it tells of a birth whose light is greater than all the stars above." She was immediately intrigued by their story. How could they leave all that was familiar to them and go follow a star? It seemed crazy to her, irresponsible even. Perhaps they were rich. That's how they could afford to stop everything. Or they were royalty, kings with no real jobs. How could they possibly strike off to an unknown land to follow the light of a star? "It's a mystery," said one. "It's a miracle," another. "It's a journey of a lifetime," a third assured her. The next morning, they rose early at dawn, the star still visible in the first light of day. "Come with us," they invited her. "It's an opportunity unlike any other," said one. "We're nearly halfway there," said another. "You'll never regret it," said a third. "I'm sorry, my friends," the kind woman smiled, the lines defined amidst the wrinkles in her skin. "I've just got so much to do. I can't spare the time." So they left and journeyed onward, sorry for the woman's decision, but ever so confident in their own. She went about her business as usual. But as the day grew on, she began to think twice. This was the chance of a lifetime. She'd regret it if she didn't go. In fact, she already did. So she hurriedly grabbed a sack, filled it quickly with gifts, trinkets from her home, treats that she'd made, a few coins that she'd gathered, and sought out to find the visitors who'd stayed and shared their mystical story with her. She ran outside, searching for them, only she was too late. They were already well on their journey. She couldn't find them. But the old woman had a trick up her sleeve, too, for she wasn't just any old woman. She grabbed her broom and took to flight. An old witch in the night, soaring among the clouds, searching for the sojourners. When she couldn't find them, even while looking from above, she decided she would stop at every house and leave a gift in case she arrived at the house of the Christ child. To this day, La Befana, as she's called by some, Babushka, as she's called by others, continues her search. Broom in flight, she flies on the 12th night, bringing gifts to every house, entering through the chimney with trinkets, toys, and candy for those who are good. And for those who haven't behaved as well, they get coal or garlic. You don't remember that part of the story? Maybe you didn't read your scripture well enough. Yeah, or a little further. John, why didn't you read that part? Well, keep looking. No, you won't actually find it. But it is one of many legends that emerged from the story of those wise ones who followed the star leading westward to arrive at the feet of the Christ child. This is my favorite of those Epiphany stories, but there are many such midrash, that is legend, that emerged from this particular famous story in our scriptures. We know so little about these magoi, as it says in Greek, or magi, you're more familiar with the Latin, these magicians or these wise ones. Who are they? And what compelled them to first follow that star? Nobody knows, really. But their identity, their bold decision to leave their own people, their country, their sense of familiarity, to follow a star to who knows where, for why, has mystified people for thousands of years. That is the question. Who are they, and why does Matthew tell us about them? What was their story? So since our scripture tells us very little, we know that they were wise ones who saw a star, who followed it, who arrived at Herod's palace, stopped to ask him directions. Then Herod calls all the chief priests and scribes, and everyone decides, based on ancient scripture, that it was in Bethlehem that this baby must have been born. The writer of gospel wants this reader, as you'll remember, to make these connections to the Hebrew scripture. And so, of course, Herod invites the religious leaders to scour scripture to figure out who and where this baby is, because Matthew, remember, he's still making a point. The religious leaders don't know who Jesus is. They failed to notice his birth. So does the political leader, the powerful King Herod. Nobody notices this baby born in Bethlehem. Nobody understands the significance. Not the religious elite, not the rulers who hold political power. Actually, as you know, the Gospels will continue to remind us over and over again that Jesus is never recognized by the powerful, never the people that we expect. Most of the time, they don't pay attention. They miss Jesus. They miss his message entirely, just like they missed his birth and this blazing star in the sky. It took foreigners, pagans even, to notice that something had happened, that something had changed, and that the world would never be the same. Of course, the powerful and the rich didn't notice. Maybe it wasn't even for them to notice. Maybe they were incapable. Their preoccupations with themselves and their status kept them from seeing the glory that shone before them, the light that could change their eyes. So Herod, he doesn't really care until he realizes that something's going to happen to him. So he tells these scribes to read the prophecy, look back, and they find the book of Numbers where it says, a star shall come out of Jacob, a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and this ruler will conquer surrounding nations. So he's completely threatened, and he wants to do with any and all who would upset his role as king. So he tells these wise ones, who we still have this big question mark in our mind, who are they? Go ahead, continue on your journey, pay homage, but then return to me so I can do the same. How did they know what that star signified? How did they know that it was about a birth of a child? We don't know. All we know is that these wise ones, these magoi in Greek, were following this star. Now, if you were paying attention 2 weeks ago in the Christmas challenge, if you were here for the Christmas challenge, or you were online for the Christmas challenge, right? That's where you were. You might have an idea of who they were. Perhaps they were Zoroastrian priests who somehow learned how to interpret the stars, like an astrologer or an astronomer who watched the star rising at the birth of this baby that they felt was worth traveling great distance to bring these gifts. So in a dream, the wise ones learn of Herod's plan, and they decide that they will get out of Dodge. They will leave town, and Herod, though, he decides that he will kill every baby that might be Jesus. Now, you might remember, we've talked about this before, that we know this story. This infanticide is really the one that the Pharaoh provoked in order to get baby Moses, killing all babies under 2. But by inserting this heinous decree into the mouth of Herod, Matthew manages to make these parallels with Jesus' birth and Moses' birth, making him the next great leader. And the wise ones realize what's happening because they're wise, and they decide to pay their homage and then return back to their mysterious place from which they came, not going the same direction as Herod. So back to our question. Who are they? Really, we're not the only ones to ask the question. With so little to go on, people turn to Midrash, these legends that filled the gaps. And the legend of La Befana is only one of the stories of Midrash that emerged. Some of them you know without even realizing you know it. Did you know that? For example, how many were there again? Maybe. How did you know? It's in the song. Yeah, of course. You're answering online. When you answer online, type it in, and Donnie's here to tell me what you say. So the scripture tells us that there were more than one because we get the plural form in Greek. But we do not actually know how many. And what was their occupation again? We've talked about it, but sorcerer, that could be it. What was it? Astronomers for the Christmas challenge, folks. Thank you, paying attention. But what's the obvious one that we say all the time? Kings. Because that's what we sing. But if you had good ears and could hear through the masks, you know that our incredible singers did not sing "We Three Kings of Orient Are." You might have noticed the change. We sang "Wise Ones." But who are they and what were their names? Anybody know? Anyone answering online? What are the names of these guys? Anybody? In the recesses of your mind, do you remember? Do you know that you know? Douglas. Casper. Balthazar. And Melchior. How do you know that? That's right. The Western church tradition has it that Balthazar is often represented as a king of Arabia, that Melchior is a king of Persia, and that Gaspar is a king of India. So, these three kings somehow found each other, maybe independently looking at the sky somewhere along the route, or maybe they were at a royal summit, and they studied the sky together. So we don't know how many there were, really. We only know that there was more than one. Eastern Christianity must sing a different song than we do because they believe that there were 12. Now, we don't know if they were all male. Were they? I mean, it's likely because it was a patriarchal society, but they could have been women as well. As we said, they're closer to astrologers, but magoi, the word there, means magicians, technically. And the fact that they're men is only because of the fact that the Greek word is masculine. So if there's more than one, all you need is one man in the bunch to make the whole word masculine. So we don't know exactly, but we think they were probably these Eastern Zoroastrians who studied the sky like astronomers or astrologers, and they're not likely kings. But there's still all this mystery left to this story. One thing is clear. Nobody in Judea realizes that Jesus has been born. The pious religious ones fail to notice. The ruling king doesn't either. And when he does, he's nothing but vengeful and jealous. And yet these wise ones, these kings, these astrologists, these magicians, these mysterious ones, they notice. So much so that it compels them to action, to stop everything they are doing and change the course of their lives to experience the source of this light. They paid attention. They responded. They acted. They gave of themselves, and they did not go back the same way. They don't go back the same way they came. They aren't the same. They're transformed by this experience. So now that we've asked a lot of questions about them, we have to ask ourselves, who are we in this story? Are we the pious religious who miss the very thing that we've been waiting for? Because we are too preoccupied navel-gazing instead of stargazing? Are we the ones with all the power, ruling it over others, fearful of losing our power or pride? Or are we open, aware, looking, waiting, and ready to give of ourselves so that the mysterious might transform us? Well, I'd like to be a wise one, but I'll settle for La Befana. After all, she's a little bit like me anyways, preoccupied with all the things she has to do and wondering how anyone could be so crazy to drop everything and follow a star. Who has time or luxury to do something like that? But she's redeemed because she thinks twice. She stops what she's doing. She acts, and she goes in search of a miracle. And then she does what all of us are called to do. When she cannot catch up with the Magi, she goes from house to house, leaving gifts because who knows if that is the home where Christ lives. She treats everyone like they might be the Christ. She treats everyone like Jesus. And she gives what she has as to not miss out at giving at all. She continues her searching and continues her giving. And in the process, she is transformed. So, the question remains, who are you? And that's why they call it Epiphany.